Now because your friend murdered my father, I also wear the mantle of king. So I ask you, as both warrior and king, how long do you think you can keep your friend safe from me?
Welcome back to A Stark Contrast, where we discuss the differences and similarities from Marvel Comics to their MCU counterparts. And we are your hosts, Geoffrey
and Dai.
Welcome back. We are back for another one.
Are we recording?
Yeah.
Oh, we're totally recording.
I'm keeping that in there.
Hello.
I'm keeping that in there.
No, you can keep that. That's cool. All right. Yeah. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Episode 9.
9.
I
know.
Almost at 10, man.
I know.
Like, I almost feel like...
I think we got to do something special for a 10 episode. Yeah.
And I'll be completely honest. Like, next episode I planned what if, because Geoffrey and I are doing this thing where we're trying to align more recent episodes to any particular MCU release that might be coming out, just to help people who are very curious about certain things. And so I had staggered it differently before, and I think that the mini Marvel was supposed to land on 10.
Yes.
And then because we inserted today's character study into the mix, it kind of threw it all off. But I mean, I don't know, we'll figure something out, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, we'll do something. Yeah.
So before we get into it, I just wanted to say I'm happy to announce we have new listeners in another country.
Woo!
Once again, I don't know if you saw this on the document yet.
Not
Geoffrey,
yet, no.
But we have listeners in the Netherlands. So hello.
That's amazing.
To all of our Netherlands friends. And as they say, bedankt. I hope I said that correctly. Thank you very much. As always, if you're a new listener or you just haven't done it yet, be sure to subscribe and rate if you can. It helps us gain visibility, and it is definitely working.
That's wild.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
It's so cool. I'm so used to announcing countries
Yeah.
when it comes to things because of our previous profession of sorts. And so it's nice to be able to shout out these countries. And again, if you haven't heard yours on any of the previous episodes, please let us know. We'd love to say thank you. And in addition to that, we actually have another Patreon patron. So huge thanks to our latest contributor, Devon. Who's a huge Black Panther fan, as far as I know.
Thank you.
And so his timing is incredible. So thank you for your support. And I'm going to do a firstie for this episode.
Let's go.
And I have a corrections corner on myself.
Okay.
So I wanted to do this again because, we don't have the mini Marvel coming up right on the tails of this episode. But I mentioned in the Jessica Jones episode 8, I mentioned that something about, the women of Marvel and how they are never shown pregnant until more recent years. And I said Jean Grey. I completely misspoke. I meant to say Madeline Pryor.
Okay.
Not to blow your mind too early.
Okay.
She was a clone of Jean Grey.
Wow. Okay.
Huge storyline. Huge storyline. So anyway, I met Madeline Pryor, and also I did mention one of my favorite artists. His name is Valerio, and I just came back from GalaxyCon rally in North Carolina, and thankfully, a few of my associates there helped clarify this last time because somebody also asked, "How do you pronounce his last name?" And I said Shitty. in the last episode, and that person also said that, and thankfully we had an Italian on hand.
Oof.
and they clarified it as Schitti. So that makes absolute sense. So my love to Valerio Schitti, who is one of my favorite artists.
Respect.
I had to do it. I'm sorry. But yeah, so that's that.
Cool.
And I guess we're gonna roll into it. As always, we're not experts. We don't claim to be. This is a heavy one because we have a very classic character, very dense history.
Yeah. Which is why we're just jumping straight into it because there's a lot.
There's a lot. And we're going to miss some things and some details. Considering the contrast that we do on this show, I'm gonna try and keep it as tightly aligned with the MCU as humanly possible, but we'll see where we go. And before I introduce our character study for this episode, I wanted to do a quick thank you to our friends at Marvel for an advance copy of the Black Panther Spellbound book.
Ooh.
That we actually received digitally. We got a preview of it a couple of weeks ago, and I just barely started. I'm only like, I want to say 15 or 20 pages deep into the book, and it's a wonderful prequel of sorts written by an author named Ronald L. Smith, and he wrote the previous book. This is the second in the series, and it essentially follows this character, T'Challa, obviously, as a young prince before we come to know him in the comic books and the MCU. And so, yeah, I just started that. Thank you again to Marvel. The book is publicly and available globally on September 28th, so be sure to get it. Again, Black Panther Spellbound, written by Ronald L. Smith.
Nice.
Hope you enjoy it. And so, yeah, so this episode is all about T'Challa, Black Panther.
Oh my god, yeah.
So, when was the last time you saw the film? Just curious.
The film, oh wow. I mean, I would think recently, but I started watching it again today because I saw that you watched it, and I was like, oh, maybe I should rewatch it.
Yeah.
But like, I have a very, very fond memory of the movie because it came out February 2017.
Look at you.
No, not 17. Oh, it was 17. Sorry. Oh, because then.
Okay, now I gotta Google this.
I think so.
Okay, let's see.
Oh yeah, February 2017.
2017? Ah!
No, it was 2018.
January 29th, 2018
Okay, so it
Close,
was
you're
a
very
January
close,
movie.
though.
No, yeah, I
Yeah,
thought
you're
because I knew it was a beginning of the year
Yeah,
film.
it's a winter film.
Yeah, so but I remember seeing it and like I just remember it really well. Chadwick is great in it. God rest his soul.
Yeah. Incredible.
Michael B. Jordan. I mean, there's a lot of heavy
Let's
hitters
just say
in there.
The
Yeah,
entire cast
is pretty.
it's solid all
Yeah.
around. There's not a weak link in
Yeah,
that
I
chain.
don't. When people would say like it's like an okay, I was like no.
Really? Oh
At least
my
when it came out, because
gosh.
obviously like
Really?
with the whole like they only made this movie because it's like it's
that just frustrates me.
an all black cast
Yeah.
type of thing, and I'm like, and it's like they're just like it was like a mid. It was a
Yeah.
mid movie, and I'm
No
like.
way.
It
No
was.
way.
Yeah, I saw that stuff. I saw that stuff on
See,
Twitter, and I was
couldn't-
like, "Oh
can't
my
do that.
gosh!"
I can't do that. No, I mean, genuinely speaking, all things aside, like, and I said this on Twitter today after or while I was watching it, I was like, it is easily top 5 MCU films for me.
It's really good.
Easily, and not even personally speaking, I think in the realm of MCU, that's at least top tier. It's top tier.
It's really good.
And I certainly didn't expect it to. Like, I was one of those people who got to see the preview, like a preview of the film before it came out. Not the entire thing, but like a 20, 30 minute
Sure.
thing.
Yeah.
And so, and I did that at the El Capitan, and I remember just being like, because to not preface the episode, but like, I don't know much at all about this character beyond the movie version.
Yeah.
And so to see him come to life in the way that he did, more expansively than he had in Civil War, was just like mind blowing to me. And then on top of that, the cast is so talented, so beautiful, and just so wonderful all around. It's just like, dang, this is it was a game changer for so many reasons.
Yeah, just because you actually get to see Wakanda and like how advanced they are, and because there's been tease of this vibranium throughout the whole MCU.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you actually go to where it's originating from, then you're like, okay, wow, they're on a whole different level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so let's bring it back a bit to the origin of this character. So T'Challa, Black Panther himself, was created once again by Stan Lee and Jack King Kirby, whose first appearance was in Fantastic Four number 52 in July of 1966.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah, so he's going real far back once again. He's in the pool with like Black Widow and Iron Man and the X-Men, and of course the Fantastic Four, as I mentioned. And it's interesting that we're not going to get too deep into the alliances so much, but that he in particular was dropped into the world of Fantastic Four of all teams, and by that proxy it introduces him to a particular suite of characters that predominantly we have not seen in the MCU. So, you know, not to like cry over Chadwick too soon and so much already, but it's a shame that, you know, we may not get to see what they had initially planned for that character, and how he interacted with the family, and you know, if Namor comes into the picture and those characters, and so first things first, Geoffrey actually brought this up before we started the recording, but you know, contrary to popular belief, the namesake was not inspired by the Black Panther movement. That kind of seemed like an obvious tie.
I mean, you should have seen my surprise when I said, I was like, oh yeah, it was derived from that, right? And they're like,
he was absolutely like mind blown. But yeah, actually, you know, T'Challa and Black Panther in particular, you know, the creation came in July 1966, and you know, doing the timeline research, the Black Panther movement and the group actually came around October 1966.
Wow.
So they're very close, and you have to understand, like, perhaps there was at least, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, a year of conceptualizing the character.
Yes.
So he significantly predates, you know, this group, and that's kind of crazy to think about, that perhaps maybe, I mean, there's no fact behind it, but I
mean,
wow,
with the way timelines line up, I mean, that would be crazy if that was an actual story of the Black Panther movement started because Stan Lee made this character.
It'd be crazy.
That's insane.
And you know, and Stan himself, you know, when they were bringing about this character and the familiars and the relatives that came with it, you know, it was Stan's reassurance that he wanted to bring in more characters, more diverse characters in general. Like, he wanted the artists to draw them more in the background, in the crowds, you know, among the heroes. And so inserting a straight up, you know, Black Panther was the first superhero of African descent in mainstream American comics.
It's awesome.
That's
awesome.
And so to be that pioneer, I think, is just so incredible. And I think people tend to forget, like, yeah, sure, you know, these guys made so many characters and created so much stuff, but you have to remember the history that goes back into it. We've said it before, you know, like, considering the time frame of these characters and when they were created, and you know, how they have these struggles and they have to strive through things like the women's movement, and you know, just that whole balance of things. And then now we're introduced to, you know, the racial tension of the time, and how people were really trying to make a difference. And so T'Challa is like a beacon for all of that time, which is like kind of
awesome.
Nuts to think about.
Crazy. Like, I wonder
crazy.
How life was like during that time, and then this character comes out, and it's
imagine like the power behind his representation, but also the backlash that they must have
probably gotten, I'm pretty sure Stan Lee saw a lot of just that, like, why would you create, and it's and also, you know, it's kind of wild to think about that the character came in 1966, but we didn't get a film till 2018. Crazy.
That's
crazy.
Me, that's like,
I can name a good amount of reasons why.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously. Like movie film studio reasons for sure.
Right.
It's messed up. It has to wait until 2018 just to be like, okay, maybe we can. And it's like,
right?
Come on.
That's incredible. And, you know, of course, not to overlook films like Blade, for instance, because
sure.
You know, Wesley Snipes, you know, I think I had this further down in my notes, but like Wesley Snipes was trying to get a Black Panther movie made back in his day, but I think it was the whole rights thing that we've talked about before, where he was kind of, you know, Black Panther was floating around and he wasn't quite part of any particular acquisition. It made it hard for him to do, and so he was like, I'll do Blade then. And so Blade kind of cut in line. But I think, you know, with all the timing, you know, Chadwick aside, I think that the timing was just, it was there. Like, it was their moment to finally
to do it
happen.
Yeah,
you know,
and it made sense. Yeah.
And it made absolute sense. And so getting back to the nitty gritty, I mean, T'Challa. He comes from the fictional land of Wakanda in Africa. Their official language is Kosa, which is what you hear them speaking. And it's an actual language. I feel like people don't realize it's the actual language of South Africa. And so it's incredible to hear the actors take on the native language and tongue and the way that they accent the words and so seamlessly, and then hear them bounce back into their regular accents. Chadwick in particular was incredible at that. Like, I had no idea that he was so, like, he was very much like, he was almost a voice actor in that way. In his roles, he was just so diverse and so he was so talented in the way that he could convey things, and it didn't fall short at all as T'Challa, as with the rest of the cast. And so, you know, like, honestly, the whole 5 minutes maybe of the film, the introduction, is very much aligned with what the character embodies, and they tell you all about the Panther God, Bast, and how, you know, the mantle of the Black Panther is hereditary and it's passed on through lineage and it has to be earned, and so it's almost expected of the person to become the Black Panther, but as you see in the film, they also have to fight for it. And so before I jump into the rest of the stuff, I'm going to go back to our cards. We finally have cards again.
Let's do it.
Because, you know, the last, you know, it's funny because, you know, you go 7 straight episodes or at least 6 and you have trading cards, and then Jessica Jones comes along and like, I have no trading cards. But now we have them again. And so once again, 1993, 1992, and I'm going to read from the 1992 Marvel Masterpieces by Joe Jusko. And it says, Black Panther. In the African kingdom of Wakanda, no legends are as revered as those surrounding the panther, Wakanda's sacred totem. Those legends come true when King T'Challa took the throne and inherited the mantle of the Black Panther. Skilled in the ways of combat and the stalking of prey, gifted with senses and physical prowess far beyond those of normal men, the Black Panther strikes with speed, grace, and fury for justice at home and abroad. And so that's pretty straight to the point.
Yeah, very.
He's getting it done. He's doing it well.
Yeah.
And as you can see, the suit is... so this card in particular is... I have a chart of all of the Black Panther suits, and this one is just straight up all black. You can barely see the accents on the wrists, which is quite different from, you know, the embellishments you see like in the MCU. And this, you know, same could be said about the Hildebrandt card, and all of them.
Looks
they're
almost
like the same black suit.
Yeah, looks almost like the Batman Beyond suits from the animated show.
It kind of does, yeah. Especially in this coloring right for this Marvel Universe card. It's interesting. Is it just bathed in all black? And so he really lives up to his moniker. Let's see here. And so T'Challa himself, you know, he's been on a few teams. I didn't get too deep into that, but you know, he's been a part of the Avengers, again the Fantastic Four for a hot minute.
That's crazy.
This group called the Knights of Pendragon, and then another one called the Illuminati. And so these, there is a group named the Illuminati, and Namor's part of that too. And
oh wow,
you know, I hope we get to talk about Namor eventually. Especially with Wakanda Forever, if in fact he is.
They announced that as him as villain.
I don't think they announced it, but they're putting it people are putting it together. There was an actress that I think they added that is of that realm.
Okay,
I want to say she's Namorita. I'm not sure.
In that D23 presentation or whatever they did last year, they announced like the actors and everything. Did they announce anything for Black Panther? Oh, no, they didn't. They just announced that Ryan Coogler's coming back.
Right.
And okay, that's it, yeah.
And that's it. And so I just very recently saw, you know, because they're starting to do the leak game. And so I did see that there was an actress that had been cast, whether or not she was definitively cast as Namor's cousin or Namorita, I don't know. Yeah. Which are, I believe they're one and the same anyway.
Okay.
But I don't think that he has been announced. But it was kind of the no-brainer, you know, considering the film. But they're actually quite intertwined in the books. an adversary's Namor doesn't get along with anybody except for Emma Frost.
Nice. Okay.
He's a wee bit problematic. And so we're not going to get into him too much, at least right now, because if and when he gets his own day to shine, it's going to be a thing. And so the powers, again, like he's Panther-like. What more can he say, right? Like, and we see this quite a bit in. Would you say it's as much in Civil War as it is in Black
I was gonna say,
Panther?
how are his powers in the comics? Like, do they have to do, is the heart-shaped herb part in the comics? So,
yes.
Okay, so that's
like I said, like the first 5 minutes of the film.
Yeah.
Definitive.
Yeah, I was, because I watched it today. I didn't finish it, but I watched like that first
that
part,
part,
and I was like, oh, this is very straight to the point.
Yeah.
This is how Wakanda is, and the Black Panther mantle. All right, cool, I got it.
Exactly. Yeah, and so the meteorite that had the vibranium shot down to Earth 1 million years ago, depending on the source material, 1 million years is it in the books. And, scientifically speaking, pushing up the nerd glasses, scientifically speaking, the meteorite hit Earth, it struck, the metal and the compound began to spore in the ground. And that's why it harvests there.
Oh.
And so then it affected the
soil,
the life,
the life. Okay.
And so this plant in particular, the heart-shaped, what did you say it was?
The heart-shaped herb.
Yes, that is correct. The heart-shaped herb, the glowy purple thing in the movie, the flower. When they pluck the heart out of the plant, so in the film they treat it very like spiritually, and it's
and
like
then
an imbued power.
And then the person who was the first Black Panther, they were like guided by like this panther spirit.
by Bast.
Bast.
And you'll hear them say it in the movie. Like, instead of like, oh my God, they say, oh my Bast, or Bast. It's very exclamatory, because Bast is their god, especially the Wakandans in particular, because that is their god. And but so they have the spiritual take on it, but then on the scientific side, it's like, well, it's kind of like a psychedelic.
Yeah.
In a way. And so they take the herb as in liquid form, or they mash it up, and it does have that effect, that it imbues them with this sort of power,
super strength, ability, quick agility, like a panther.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much.
Yeah.
And so I have the chart here. In the MCU, it's very straight and simple. It's just hand-to-hand combat, bulletproof costume, vibranium claws, and energy pulse, which is the EMP sort of kinetic energy that you see Black Panther absorb. And then in the books, it's a little more. It's quite more fleshed out, and like the card says, the power to draw upon knowledge, strength, and every experience of every previous Black Panther. So right there, he gets a wealth of knowledge that has
been passed down,
literally
basically.
been passed down. Yeah. So the lineage in the comics is much more pronounced and much more
family driven, I guess you can say.
Very family driven, because in the films you don't really, the ancestors are there, but you don't get to know them like you do T'Chaka. You don't get to know them like his father, because he's very prominent in Civil War and Black Panther.
Yep.
And then superhuman strength, endurance, speed, agility, reflexes, stamina, and senses. Yeah. Expert hand-to-hand combat in martial arts. Genius level intellect. I don't know why that is listed as a power necessarily. I feel like that's just a natural
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a natural thing for him. Highly proficient tactician, strategist, and inventor, and vibranium. The vibranium aspects. Yeah. And so I think they're. Personally speaking, I think they're pretty much on par, except for the knowledge part. We don't know. We don't know if he does. Maybe he does. From like past, Black Panthers and everything. Yeah, like maybe it is something that they'll go into further down the line somehow. I could see that. I could see how that would also be very like. It might be super exposition-y in a movie. Yeah, you're like, okay, now we gotta listen to these other like black people who have held the mantle, and it's it's just endless exposition in a 2-hour movie. Yeah, that it's an origin movie already too. So I agree. And so it's something that's really cool. Would be great to see, but perhaps their approach with it in the MCU will be different. And maybe this is what Kevin Feige meant when he said that they were going to explore the rest of Wakanda, because it is very rich in their characters in general are very there's so much story, you know, like you see it in the clans and the different, you know, they have the gorilla clan and the white gorilla clan and you know the Djibouti and all of them,
all the
like,
different
they're
tribes,
all different tribes, and so I just think that they're gonna pay homage to that somehow, some way. And so, you know, speaking of T'Chaka, so right off the bat, the family is a wee bit different, and I can't wait to see your response when I say this last one. And so, like, as presented in the films, King T'Chaka is T'Challa's father, and in the MCU, his mother is the Queen Mother Ramonda, and so I need to stop accenting. I keep accenting everything.
Well, I mean. You gotta do it. You gotta do it right.
Yeah, I
you
know.
know?
I'm trying, but I get stuck somewhere where it's like my inner Yelena is like trying to say it in a Russian accent. I'm so sorry. And so, you know, Ramonda is the mother, and she's played beautifully by Angela Bassett, who at one time wanted to be Storm, like back in the 90s.
Oh,
In that Wizard magazine before Halle Berry got it, Angela Bassett was number one choice for everybody. Yeah, and so to see her come in and be, you know, the Queen Mother of Wakanda is like, woo! And then, and so right off the bat, there's an immediate difference. Because in the books, T'Challa's mother is actually Nyami.
Okay.
And she died a week after giving birth to him.
Oh, wow.
So Ramonda is actually his stepmother in the comic books.
Oh.
And by that proxy, Shuri is a half-sister.
Half-sister.
Because she's the first child of T'Chaka and Ramonda.
Okay.
So that right there is already like, oh, okay, well, that's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Because you obviously...
It's already a different dynamic,
It's a different dynamic, and you get the vibe in the movies that they grew up together. They
super
are
close.
Of the same blood. Yeah. And so, that said, believe it or not, I don't want to get into his story too much. T'Challa has an adoptive brother.
Interesting.
And his name is Hunter.
Okay.
And so, long story short... Hunter was on a plane with his family. Plane crashed. T'Chaka found him, saved him, rescued him, took him under his wing, and was like, okay, you'll be my boy now. Plot twist: Hunter's Caucasian.
Ooh.
And so he has his own dynamic, his own like strife in this story. He blames T'Challa constantly, like, you're why our mother is dead. You know, like he considered Inyami his mom. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, you know, he's kind of got that Nebula thing going on.
Okay, yeah, that dynamic.
Like,
okay.
Yeah, and he's like, I have to be better. I have to be the best, you know, Wakandan, you know, like soldier or, you know, fighter, everything you want to call it. And so he essentially tries to best his brother this entire time, and he inevitably loses the succession because he is of T'Chaka's blood. Mm-hmm. It's done. You know how the royalty lineage goes. You know, there's a suitor that can become part of royalty, but the minute that an actual child is born of that blood, it's over. You're done. Sorry, take an exit. And so he tried desperately to become number one, and it just was never it was never meant for him. Yeah. And so instead, T'Chaka appoints him as the leader of Wakanda's like secret police. The Hatu oh gosh, I knew I was gonna mess this up. Hatu Surase. And so do you want to guess what his namesake, his moniker becomes?
Oh no.
This is not a pop quiz. I just want to say I have 0 pop quizzes for you because this is so dense.
Okay. But what is it?
But Hunter's moniker, as he becomes the head of the Hatu Surase, is the White Wolf.
Wow. So that's where they
got it from. So for those of you who are slow on the uptake,
wow.
Bucky Barnes adopts the moniker or they've given
They give it
him,
to him. They give it to him.
They give him the moniker White Wolf when he's taken to Wakanda to kind of rehabilitate himself after the events of Civil War. And and it's that name continues to this day. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. Well, I mean, I would be a little surprised, but it would be interesting if they were like Falcon and Winter Soldier. No, it's
Falcon and the White Wolf.
Captain America.
Captain America and the White Wolf.
Like. And so that's where the name has to, and I'm surprised. I mean, I personally have not seen anybody make that correlation. I haven't
either. I haven't seen it either.
And I don't. I mean, not that I look at anything, but if you haven't seen it, Geoffrey, then I'm surprised.
Yeah.
So he was the White Wolf.
White Wolf was trending on Twitter after the show. I remember too, because like they changed, like they're like, oh, you changed Sam's name to Captain America.
Why not?
Why not change? Like, it should be Captain America and the White Wolf.
Yeah.
But like I never saw that comparison that's the character in the comic.
And he clearly, you know, not to stray too far into Bucky land.
Yeah.
But Bucky like clearly embraces that name.
Yeah.
Because he even says it in the show, you know, like, what did they call him? The White Panther? Or...
He's like White Wolf. He's like White Wolf.
And he corrects Sam and he says, no, it's White Wolf.
I hope he makes an appearance in the sequel.
I know, that'd be great.
That would be cool because Wakanda played a pretty big role in the series.
Yeah.
So
and I love his dynamic with Ayo in particular, and like
Ayo basically
incredible.
saved his life.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. So that's your mind.
Wow, that is, I did not know that.
Yeah, and so I mean, as far as you can tell, I mean, they've completely eradicated this character from the MCU, and I feel like they don't need it. I mean, you know, like I feel like it would just take away, it would detract from the current story. I don't remember.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't remember what time frame Hunter came around, but it was very early on, you know. And so, you know, that said, I wrote a new tier here, and you know, I hadn't touched on villains so much in previous episodes or adversaries because it's kind of tough to say like, well, who are Spidey's like top 5 adversaries when one of the groups is literally called the Sinister Six?
Yeah.
You know, like how do you compress them all? And so I tried to stay on with the MCU ones in particular. And so, yeah, I mean, there are so many differences, and again, it's so dense. And you know, of course, all of the people that we encounter in the film exist in the books, and so that includes M'Baku. You know, again, he's from the White Gorilla cult. They have their ape god, Gekker. I think that's correct. I'm not sure. I'm so sorry. Ulysses Claw, who is very much, you know, very similar as well. He's got, you know, the hand, and it's interesting because Ulysses in particular, who's played by Andy Serkis. He's just crazy.
Yeah.
His left hand is technologically advanced, and it's a, you know, like a, what would you call it, a robotic arm of sorts.
Yeah, like a vibranium mechanic. It's vibranium, right?
Yeah. And so in the books, I believe there was like a freak accident, and actually I believe T'Challa blew it off in the comics. Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah. And then he inevitably gets the replacement, and he's like, it's vibranium.
Yeah.
And then of course Killmonger. And so Killmonger is quite similar. I mean, they obviously look a little different because of the times that they were created, but Killmonger, the story completely checks out. He's
he's the
cousin.
The cousin,
yes,
and everything.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And he is just, the story is obviously changed because it was formatted for MCU.
Yeah.
But his existence is solely based on like, I want to shake some trees. Like I just want to make people frustrated and challenge, you know, authority.
The king, the throne.
Yeah. He's all about that. And so, I mean, again, and Killmonger is once again another character where we could go off about him.
I'm sure. Yeah. And Michael B. Jordan does an amazing job.
Incredible. Like he's, I mean, not that everybody else is sensational, but he is exceptional to the point where, like, I forgot who said it, but the common consensus when this film came out, from my point of view, was that everyone was like, well, he ain't wrong. Like,
that's what I watched the movie and I was like,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, actually,
it's messed up, but
it's he's not wrong. You know, Killmonger was like, there's this thing with like Magneto was right. You know, there's this thing about the X-Men and how Magneto's sort of mentality about humanity like he wasn't wrong, you know.
Which is why I think these MCU movies, especially recently, like why they're so good is when you have a villain that you care about and understand and that makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes the movie like that much better because you're like, well, yeah, Thanos just
Thanos wasn't necessarily
Thanos
his approach
he's
was
not
just
wrong.
kinda,
He's like, yeah, the world's there's too many people, too many mouths to feed, not enough to go around.
It's finite. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I was like,
yeah. And so like there was this moment where the people that had created shirts that said Magneto was right started to create Killmonger was right, and I was like, actually, because
I mean, he's like we have all this technology, advanced technology, and we're letting our people just die out there, and you're like,
it's wild.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
It was tough. It was so good to see such a great villain or anti-hero. I don't know what you want to call him.
And he's grounded too. Like,
and he's grounded.
You had that background when he was in Oakland and everything, and you're like, okay, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
He's been through it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Also, my girlfriend would definitely agree that Michael B. Jordan did exceptionally well because.
Did it have anything to do with the waterfall?
It had
scene?
nothing to do with the movie. She just loves Michael B. Jordan.
But she's seen it.
No.
Sam.
She'll just be like, oh, Michael B. Jordan? Yes. I love him. I mean, I'd be like, great.
I mean, if she said it about Fantastic Four, we might have
She would still probably be like, it's Michael B. Jordan. I don't care.
Oh, he was still good in that, too. I can't lie. He was still good in that. So, I'm not going to judge too harshly.
But no, yeah, I think and I love the contrast of character between Michael B. Jordan and Chadwick because you have T'Challa, who's just born and raised Wakandan, you know. Then you have Michael B. Jordan, Killmonger. He's
raised rough.
He's raised in Oakland. He's like super American.
Yeah.
So seeing like that contrast when they face off in Wakanda, you're like, whoa, this is crazy.
You can't imagine the journey too, because I mean, you know, like I mentioned at the top of the show, with the Spellbound book in particular, like again, you're following T'Challa as a young child. I think he was 12 or 13 in the books, if not younger. And so you're seeing how, you know, again, in the first few pages, he's on an airplane. He's traveling to the United States to meet his friends that he occasionally sees. Yeah. And so you take that kind of background and then you compare it to what Eric must have experienced as a child without a father. He's probably in and out of orphanages or foster homes, and he, you know, in Oakland, maybe he was on the streets for who knows how long, you know. And it's like, holy smokes. And then you bring that character into the modern time, and then you see how he must have developed such resentment.
He was just like driven.
For everything. Yeah, he's very
crazy.
Driven. Yeah, and you know, and it's just sensational. And so yeah, I'm sure I would love to do an episode on him alone eventually. But yeah, like he was so compelling as a character, and they balanced each other so brilliantly too.
Yeah, they are so good.
Like when he's like, "Is this your king?" I was like, "Oh my god!"
And when he was like, "Hey, auntie," and I was like,
"Oh!" That is honestly probably the best soundbite out of that movie.
He's so good.
Everybody was like,
because everyone's like, "Oh my god, he's related to us."
He's related, and he's just sauntering in like, "Hey, what's up? I'm gonna be king now."
He's like, technically, I'm next in line, and you're like. He's not wrong. He's literally not wrong.
Exactly. And it's like the Hunter thing. It's like Hunter was like, okay, I was here first, but now he's blood.
I just wasn't here. I was just abandoned because my uncle killed my dad.
Exactly. Oh,
and you're like, oh my god, this is the worst family reunion you can ever ask for.
And that's the crazy thing, because you know they're so pristine and almost like flawless in the fact that they try to be so straight and narrow and so well grounded and well rounded,
traditional,
and very traditional and very, you know, true to their heritage. And then here comes this Americanized like cousin. It's like, by the way, and he lists off all their flaws and calls them out on it and what they're doing wrong, and it's like, wow. Yeah. That's why I'm saying that movie is just. Wow.
It changed like kind of like the shape. I mean, I know we haven't seen much of it yet, because obviously at the end of the movie, that's when Wakanda goes public to the world. Right. So, and to this day, we still have not seen them, like how they will benefit like the world and what problems that'll kind of build up to. So I'm excited. I think the sequel is going to be actually the first legit time where we see that like okay, Wakanda's open to the world. Even though we saw a little bit of it in Infinity War when Deny
Oh, Okoye.
Okoye,
Yeah.
where she's like when you said we're gonna open up to the world, I thought we were gonna get like a Starbucks or something. But you were still in Wakanda, so you weren't able to see how it would affect like the UN or whatever and other
Right.
nations. So I think I'm pretty nice.
Rocket is talking in the background. What is that? Do you agree? Yeah. Okay.
So like so I'm excited to see like that and see like what countries and or people, villains, whoever will try to be like, now we have to. He'll be like a Ulysses Claw, but because now Wakanda's open to the world, it's probably easier to get into Wakanda. So I'm pretty excited to see how that pans out.
Because they even say, in the discussion in the film, Ulysses is speaking to Everett Ross.
Yeah.
Like he's like, oh, we didn't even know where Wakanda was.
Everyone was looking in South
Everyone
America.
was looking, and then they were in Africa the entire time. And so now, how many Ulysses Claws are there that have been waiting for that opportunity?
And he's the only one to make it out alive.
Yeah, exactly.
That's that too. So it's
exactly.
So I'm excited for that.
Wild.
I know.
And so, as we go into the next tier of discussion, I just wanted to very quickly address, like, people might be wondering like why I kind of like bring up love interests at all. And that's kind of why I pulled in the adversaries, for instance. But I feel like love interests always end up branching out into other stories that are very pertinent to that character. And so and they kind of help us see a broader scope of any one character's storyline without splitting off like crazy, and so I just wanted to say that, just for peace of mind, because homeboy here he's got a few that are actually very, very important.
All right, let's hear it.
I'm not gonna go too deep into the first
What's
three.
the most notable? Notable.
There's like 5. I have 5 here.
All right.
So very quickly, so these are the relationships that T'Challa has had with women throughout the comic books. And so first and foremost, he had a college girlfriend, Nicole Adams. That one was actually very interesting because, again, it spoke to the times. And Nikki was Caucasian, and so this was a moment of interracial tension, and a guy named Kamal Rakim, he actually attacked her, and T'Challa like saved her.
Okay.
And then he went up and beat the guy's crew. But it was a lot of that tension of just like, you shouldn't be together. And so again, it was very interesting and very important to this character to be in the thicket of those times. And I mean, heck, we still see it to this day, sadly. But I think that was a very important foundation for him in particular. Then later he dates a girl named Malika. She was key in a particular battle that T'Challa actually has as the Black Panther against Bast herself.
Okay.
And so they didn't last too long, but she was very important to that particular storyline. And his survival, really. After her came a woman named Monica Lynn. There's this group called the Sons of Serpent in the books, and they're led by a character named General Chen, aka Supreme Serpent. And essentially his ordeal is that he wants to divide America, and they're a racist group.
Oh, okay.
And so again, more of that racial tension is coming into play, and so essentially T'Challa saved Monica from them, and there's a huge storyline about that. And he tends to, he bonds with these women that he's like protecting in a way. He's doing his thing, and
just stuff gets out of hand.
Yeah, and it's in the moment. It happens. This particular relationship was long term. She actually goes back to Wakanda and lives in the palace, and they're engaged, and for whatever reason she ended up calling it off. And they never explored that, which was very interesting. And this Monica in particular, I think, would have been interesting to see, or at least see in some flashback or some sort of story, because later on down the timeline they cross paths again, And sadly, like all things, very tragically, she succumbs to terminal cancer. And he actually offered her the heart-shaped herb
to save her,
and it doesn't work.
No.
Yeah, and so she tragically dies, and it's like, it's
heartbreaking.
absolute heart. And so this is Monica in particular is a very like strong presence. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And so like for all his powers and prowess, he still couldn't save somebody. And it's like, oh gosh, that's a tough one. And what?
I was gonna say like the way like you're describing like how he is when it comes to like certain like relationships and stuff makes me think of literally the first 10 minutes where he's trying to save Nakia.
Yeah.
And he froze.
Literally
so his his personality when it comes to relationships, it kind of shines through in that one
soft.
moment
Yeah,
where it's just like don't freeze.
Yeah.
Where Okoye's like don't freeze, and he's like I never freeze, and he's like hi.
I know the way he says it's so endearing to me. He goes hi.
He's like Nakia. And just like you're like wow.
Yeah, exactly. Like you see this man who's like fearless and he's like just like scary as all heck in his outfit, and then in a minute he sees like this woman that he cares so deeply about.
He just breaks down.
And so I imagine that's kind of like what with the correlation of like in the books, of course he's rough around the edges, and I'm sure the women were as well, but at the heart of it, in the heart of him, he's like. He's a ladies' man, but he's also like a soft kitten.
100%.
And so, speaking of Nakia is the next on the list. And so, this contrast is very interesting. And so, in the MCU, portrayed by the lovely Lupita Nyong'o, and, who I love so much. And so, it's established in the film that they were exes.
Yeah.
That they... And she even toys around about being queen, like that's how they are in that. And that moment in the book, she's a bit different.
Okay.
She in the comic books, Nakia she has the last name as well. Her last name is Xiaoku. I think that's how you spell it. You pronounce it, Xiaoku. Nakia Xiaoku. And she essentially became very infatuated with T'Challa in her youth, and it essentially escalated. Throughout their time together, not even together, throughout their days, like interacting in the same capacity. And it was so bad. She's got a bit of crazy girl going on in the books. And so it escalated to the point where while T'Challa was dating Monica, who we just spoke about, she literally yeeted her out of a plane because she was like, "He's mine."
Yeah, that's I don't know what the threshold for craziness is, but I mean that's pretty up there.
Threw her out of a plane, and so like I think I got this off of Marvel. No, that couldn't have been Marvel. It had to have been Fandom or something. But they quoted, and I thought I had to leave it in my notes because I wanted to say it, quote unquote. Unceremoniously threw her out of a plane.
Unceremoniously. What a word to use.
If that doesn't tell you how Nakia is in the books, I cannot help you.
She definitely does not seem like that in the movie.
Can you imagine Lupita? Like,
if anything, she's like the alpha in the movie, and like T'Challa wants to be like, please be with me. Like I know we were together before, but. Please, there's no one like you.
Again? Yeah. And so to imagine her in that contrast of,
that's funny.
Of she's so desperate for his
attention
love
love,
that she's like, if I can't have him,
no one can. It's the definition of that.
Throws a woman unceremoniously out of a plane. And so, that alone, she's disgraced and shamed from the Dora Milaje. They're like, nah.
Oh wow!
Nah. and Wakanda, so they just kind of like tell her go.
Like no, you can never come back.
Yeah, you're done.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I don't want to say that that's why she was out and about doing her own stuff in the movie, because she kind of like split by herself.
She was doing her own missions and everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, she's still welcomed back.
Yeah, but she was welcomed back.
Yeah.
There's definitely a distinct difference. And so, like most of these characters, a lot of them die, they come back, they die, they come back. She, in particular, comes back eventually, and she takes on the moniker Malice. So, Killmonger of all people bestowed that upon her.
Oh.
After a former protege that he had. And so if that gives you any more sense of how Nakia is in the
Wow.
comics, so she's not the Ray of Sunshine Lupita Nyong'o that we know. she's quite different, quite you know, I don't know what the word would be, but she's different. She's very different.
Very. That's a stark contrast for sure.
And again, I held back a bit because I was like, oh no, because like, what if we do an episode on Nakia, you know? And so that's why I didn't want to go too deep into her stuff. But it's definitely interesting.
That is interesting.
And so and that's, as far as I understand and as far as I know, that's who she is at this present moment. If she's still alive, I think she's still alive, but she's Malice now. So I wonder, is there a prospect for a Malice in the MCU? I mean, I don't know. They would have had to do.
Where did Lupita's?
She was only in Black Panther.
She didn't
come back. Yeah, she didn't come back for the duo films, the twin films. So I don't know.
Okay, I mean, so she's still out there.
Yeah.
I wonder if she got snapped.
I know. I would love to see a list of everybody who was snapped.
I am excited to see that moving forward, because I know they're going to mention that like who was snapped, who was possibly snapped.
Yeah. That's so crazy. So I wonder if there's room for her in the future to kind of go down a dark path. I mean, we've seen it with Sharon Carter, for instance, you know, and that's definitely not something that happens with you know, Agent 13.
Yeah.
In particular, but hey, you never know.
Yeah.
And then that brings us to dun 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 dun. Ororo Monroe, Storm. Oh yeah, I love the wonderment that comes out of your voice.
Wow, because it's so crazy to hear it it happened in the comics, but then you think of the comic book characters and you're like, or the movie characters, and you're like, wow, imagine.
Well, it's kind of like in the Jessica Jones episode, how I dropped like Jean Grey, in helping her with the telepathic block. It's like you know. You see the characters in the MCU as you know them, and then you're like, wait.
Yeah,
what?
I'm much more of a putting a face to a name kind of thing. Right, so like when you say that, I'm like, wow, imagine. So their story in particular is very interesting because it's kind of been written as it goes along, and so I believe their first iteration. I believe they were adults. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. I'm so sorry if this is wrong. But they do the thing where they have a lot of flashbacks to supplement the history between these two in particular, because they are so prominently known as a couple in modern comic book times. And so these two actually met in their preteens. Okay. And they lost their virginity to one another. Around what? You say 11? 12. 12? Oh. And so... Oh, wow. I know. Oh, my... How dare I? How dare I? And so, as I understand, and what I've been told, is that storyline in particular, the age, especially the age, that isn't necessarily an embraced, loved storyline. But I can imagine. Yeah. Yikes. And so anyways, so they met very early. They met, you know, they young love, as you will, you know, and it's pre-X-Men, so she knew him before she became part of that team, and you know, and so you have to remember, well, if you know anything about Storm, you know, these are her times when she's, you know, because she was born in Cairo, and she was kind of like a street urchin, you know, like very Aladdin sort of, you know, she stole to survive, and you know, that's how she did it, and she raised herself in many ways. And so this is shortly after that, and she's starting to kind of lean into the powers are starting to come to be. And she actually saves T'Challa while he is on a journey, I believe for his father, and is, you know, as royalty is, their union could never be a thing because he has to stay the course and become the king, and so they couldn't become romantically involved officially, and you know, his royal duties basically prevented that. They were like, no, you have to be, you're the prince, you have to stay the prince. You have to, and so it just never
it's never explored further beyond that point until much later in life. And so she's part of the X-Men. She's the gold team leader. She's whatever you want to bring to the table. She's her own entity. Like, I'm sure we'll do her further down the line. But, they rekindle their relationship, ironically enough, after M-Day. And M-Day is a byproduct of House of M.
Okay.
And so this is after...
Wow.
M-Day is the day that all the mutants lost their powers.
Oh, okay.
And so when the mutants became depowered, Storm returned to Africa to help her people, because that's the kind of character Storm is. She's always been very rooted in her heritage as well, which is a perfect alliance with Black Panther and the people of Wakanda. And so she returns to Africa, and then she inevitably accepts T'Challa's like formal proposal to become queen of Wakanda.
Wow.
And so they were married for quite some time, and I mean, like, I didn't read every issue, but I loved them together. I thought it was a perfect match because, again, and you kind of see this with Okoye and her husband in the film, where they're in the midst of battle, and then he's like, "Would you kill me, my love?" And she's like,
Anything.
"For Wakanda?"
Yeah.
Like,
all
absolutely.
this anytime, yeah.
Yeah. And then he ends up inevitably bowing, like kneeling to her.
Whoa.
And so I feel like that's the kind of dynamic that Storm and Black Panther have in particular, like, where he is obviously a prominent figure, but also she is the queen figure, like she's the
My God, imagine
Yeah.
Chadwick and Halle Berry.
I can't imagine them in particular. I imagine Chadwick and someone else.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know who, but a Storm, it's a Storm of someone.
Wow, that would be crazy, yeah.
But, Alexandra Shipp was the last actress to play her. And I loved her. Her version was incredible. And she had the accent and everything. So I appreciated that. Obviously, she was much younger.
Yeah.
So, but, it was interesting to have them together. And it, and I said this before, with all good things, Marvel likes to kind of tear people apart.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, they are not like Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, one of the few couples that make it during the events of Avengers versus X-Men. So this is this whole, I don't know how much I've touched on it with you, Geoffrey, but it was like a 12, 15, 13 issue arc where it's quite literally the Avengers versus the X-Men.
That's a lot. Wow, yeah.
And that's just the main book. That didn't include any of the side books. Let me tell you, friend. Me, the collector.
Yeah.
They had like 4 variants minimum for each book. Okay.
Jeez.
I'm gonna rant about comic books real quick.
Wow. Go,
And
please. The floor is yours.
So
The floor is yours.
they had, like at least 13 of these books in the storyline. And each cover had an X-Man versus an Avenger. And so it was like Gambit versus Captain America.
Sure.
It was like Rogue versus Scarlet Witch. I don't remember who
Yeah.
was who. And so anyway, I bought every
Oh my God.
variant.
Oh my God.
And the worst part is...
You're basically Kane the Conqueror.
all the variants. And the worst part was, not only did they have like a base A and B variant by 2 different artists, they then introduced black and white variants.
Jesus.
And then like different ones off of that. Oh man, it was not a good time for my wallet. And the sad part is, I ended up selling most of them because I was just like, this is too many
There's a lot.
Avengers versus X-Men.
So it's 13
yeah.
issues or whatever.
At least. Oh my gosh,
13.
now I have to
Yeah,
look it up.
13. And then of those, there was like an A and B.
Yeah, A and B, and then C and D, because A and B would be like
The
cover A
Avenger,
would be-
the Avenger,
yeah,
and then the X-Men.
Cover A would be like J. Scott Campbell, and then cover B would be somebody else, and then it would be black and whites of both of those covers.
Wow.
And then like muted versions where it's like the contrast is less or something. You know
So
what
this
I mean?
must have been like a really big, like, time in that.
It was huge
in that comic.
Yeah, and it was it's 12 issues. Wow. It was kind of like what I had grown up on. Like, this is obviously much later in life for me, but it was kind of what I had always grown up on. And when people ask me like, how I got into comics or anything of that sort, I always say like, X-Men was my bread and butter growing up. It was always X-Men for me. And so when characters like Captain Marvel come about in conversation, and people ask me, "Oh, how do you like Captain Marvel? Do you like Carol Danvers?" I'm like, "No, I don't." And it has nothing to do, shockingly, has nothing to do with Brie Larson like some other folks, but it's because as a child, Captain Marvel was Ms. Marvel, and she was the bad guy because I was a Rogue fan, and Rogue got her powers from Ms. Marvel. And so to see this actually play out in an actual storyline where they're freaking fighting in 12 issues because of the return of the Phoenix Force and all this stuff, it was kind of crazy.
Okay.
And so to bring it back home, so the Avengers and the X-Men are having this sensational, like, soft key war.
Yeah.
And, you know, husband and wife, they get tangled up in it. And sadly, T'Challa's like, what? You're siding with your people? We're done. We're done.
Wow.
And so she went with the X-Men, he went with the Avengers, and it was over.
That would be a great movie, I think.
Right?
Wow. Because that's like a typical movie storyline, like, of like making a choice, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm like, wow, that'd be crazy.
Well, and I think this was also, you know, like we've discussed before, this is also something that was very much why people were like, buy Fox, get the X-Men back, because they wanted Avengers versus X-Men.
You get so much IP when you if you buy Fox.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so now that they have them, I don't know that where we're going to see that. Maybe we'll see a version of it like Civil War, because again, Civil War wasn't a direct pull from the books.
Maybe we'll get an Avengers versus like X-Men.
Yeah.
But you really have to set that up.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be surprised if that happened in the next 10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
it would be phase 15 at this point.
Kevin Feige is, oh God, dude, I don't even know. Like, I don't know how long he wants to keep doing this.
I hope they preserve his brain in a jar.
Treat him like Zola.
Yes, Zola. Kevin Feige, can you be Zola, please? And exist beyond the physical form.
Yeah, man, like that.
Yeah, it's gonna take some
like
some
now that he has X-Men IP, he's probably like, what can I do?
And you know what's sad is that he cannot do Phoenix Saga again because it's been poorly done twice. And that
twice.
And, yeah, right, twice. Like to the point that the cartoon performed better than the films. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, that's a shame because I would love to see a proper. But that again, that whole thing takes an insane amount of timeline. You know? It
does. Yeah, X-Men Last Stand was pretty freaking ridiculous. So
sorry.
I remember watching in theaters like when I was this came out in like 2005 I think too. So I remember like and I was just like I remember watching it and I was like, oh my God, this thing is so chaotic.
It was just oh my gosh.
And then just
it's a bag of cats.
And then just Wolverine just straight up just like like Jean, no! I was like, what's going on? This is ridiculous. There's a lot going on right now.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, yeah. So So yeah, AVX was a big deal, and yeah, they marriage annulled, and so now they're both the status is single, which is a shame, and I hope they kind of bring it back. I feel like perhaps that ship has sailed.
Okay,
but it was great, and you know, not to before we bounce from Storm, you know, with the new casting news for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever with is it Michaela? I'm not sure.
I have to see. I
think it's
again.
Michaela.
I remember seeing
Cole.
the tweet.
Yeah, this wonderful, beautiful actress who has been cast in the film as a mystery role.
Yeah.
I'm like, fingers
crossed.
Are they filming?
Are they filming right now?
I think they're in pre-production. Okay. Yeah, and so if I could see her as Storm, real easy. But once again, Chadwick. Like, what do you do?
I know.
What do you do? Like,
yeah, I wonder what they are going to do. I'm sure they're figuring it out, or Feige and like Ryan Coogler are like going to be like, okay.
I trust him for sure.
Yeah.
So from there, we're going to catapult over to the aesthetic and the tech, because Wakanda is all about aesthetic and tech.
Yes.
And so, like I previously mentioned, there are 15 notable suits for Black Panther in the comic
my
books.
God,
15.
okay.
And so it's interesting because in the MCU we have already actually seen, I believe, 2 if not 3. Believe it or
3
not.
for sure. 3 for
right?
sure, yes.
Yeah, and so they kind of like they took the Civil War one and kind of pulled it back a bit and it made accent changes for Black Panther.
Yeah.
And then from Black Panther to Infinity War and Endgame, I'm not sure what the differences
I think the 3 that I'm thinking of is the first one.
Oh, the very
Is
first
the first one you see in Civil War,
Yeah.
you know, where he has like
the helmet and all that.
the helmet,
Yeah.
and then the second and third one is when
in
when Shuri
Black Panther,
when Shuri is showing him.
Yeah.
It's the same
necklace.
technology with the
Yeah.
necklace.
Yeah.
But one's obviously the black one, and then
Yeah.
one's the Killmonger one.
Right.
So
right. Oh yeah, that's true.
I think that one. Yeah, those
and
are the only
so-
3 that I know of.
Yeah. And so there are 15.
15.
15.
My God.
And so, the habit, it's called the habit. It's called a habit.
Okay.
It's essentially the symbol of the office of the head of state, and it's used for diplomatic missions and such.
Okay.
As you see, they always kind of bring it with them.
Have to, yeah.
And so, of course, as we've seen in Black Panther in particular, the nanites within the suit. It's that base technology that absorbs the power, the energy, and reproduces it in a kinetic form.
Yeah.
Which is very similar to the science behind like Gambit's powers, for instance.
Okay.
And so, the suit produces this kinetic energy that can then be redistributed. And so that's the thing that you see when T'Challa is in the suit and it turns purple.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Then it bursts. And so, 15. So I have the chart here. It's so interesting because it was made by HalloweenCostumes.com,
Of course.
who ripped them all from another 5 sources.
Of course.
And so I'm going to show you this very quickly. I'm going to actually put the link in the show notes, but I'm going to show it to Geoffrey live.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so
That first one is crazy looking.
And so, and so the first suit was actually for a character called the Coal Tiger, and so there are a couple of homages in the books. Last name Cole and throwbacks to this, much like White Wolf, for instance. And so, being the first suit, it's very interesting. It's kind of gray with yellow and black accents and a red and black sort of half cape thing.
I don't even know.
Very interesting. 1965. So this is actually predating the official release of Black Panther.
Oh, that's right,
in
yeah.
1966. And so the prototype is very Batman-like.
Yeah,
So
100%.
the debut suit is black with gray accents, the gray, I guess, the underwear, if you will, boots and gloves.
In the
and then
mouth.
the
there's an
cape.
opening for the mouth.
Yeah, so he has the half cowl.
That, okay.
So you can see that he is a man of color, and I think that was very part of what they wanted to emphasize. But as you can see in the next one, they inevitably changed it, so
Like,
he is
screw it,
completely
full-
covered. Yeah,
full black
and
costume.
it's so much more. It's so much more ominous, you
Yeah.
know. And then we go about,
They said, nope, no
1967.
cape.
They stripped him of the cape. He's completely all black. Then they, by 1968, once he becomes an Avenger, they go back to the half cowl again.
no cape.
Yeah, and you see like they're kind of playing this dance where
Let's see what works, what doesn't,
Right.
kind of thing.
And then by 1998, so this is a huge jump. 30 years later was the next prominent suit where he is a Marvel Knight. And that's another branch of books, the Marvel Knights. And so by that time, T'Challa had, the gold accents finally come in.
Yeah.
And then the cape comes back with the huge collar.
No capes.
No capes. And then, 1999, it's a little different. Longer cape.
Yeah.
The gold accents are still there. He's
Oh my
still
God.
got some
I
drip.
thought in that 2003 one, Avenger again, I thought that little piece up top and up below his neck, I thought it was
Yeah.
like a Mickey Mouse. Like a hidden. I was like, what? Why is a Mickey ears? I was like, okay, never mind.
That's funny.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we're going down more. And then, by 2005, they've stripped the gold accents again.
Yeah.
They've gone back to
Black and gray.
And it's very interesting because in 2010, Man Without Fear, which is, Daredevil. So the caption here reads, Daredevil asked a depowered T'Challa to replace him as the guardian of Hell's Kitchen.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Wow.
So
imagine that.
Imagine that.
Oh my God.
Oh man, that's so sick. It's such a good idea. As the new Man Without Fear, our hero donned a new armored outfit drawn by Francesco Francavilla.
He just
And
looks
so
like
he's
a
incredible. He's known for his horror art.
Oh, nice.
And so it's a tactical.
Yeah, I was gonna
Black
say
Panther
he looks
outfit,
like a mercenary.
Yeah, and it's quite literally Daredevil's outfit, except for the chest piece is a little different. But yeah, and so he was indeed the Man Without Fear for a bit. So that's one of his other monikers. By 2013, we're back to the low accents and the necklace that everyone's so familiar with.
Wow, okay, that's where they pulled it from.
Yeah,
okay.
it's very
or kept.
very
That's
modern.
what they kept, yeah.
Yeah, and you see that going into 2016, and then here we go. So 2016 for Civil War, you see that they're starting to really accentuate the detail of the Panther. The Panther helmet. Right down to his little toes.
I know, yeah. The little
toes.
talons, yeah.
And then by 2018 in Black Panther, the first suit that we see, it's got the very silvery white embellishments. And of course, there's, like I mentioned before, there are other Black Panthers in the mix. And so the three that they have listed on this chart are, of course, Killmonger, Casper Cole, who I just mentioned. So it's believed that his name is derivative of the Cole Tiger. And then Shuri, who is an incredible costume, and I hope we get to see it.
I feel like that's where it's going at some
it's gotta,
point.
right?
I mean, God forbid, because Chadwick, because T'Challa is not gonna be a part of it. So maybe Shuri. I mean, Shuri does take the mantle. People are saying, Shuri does take the mantle of Black Panther. So maybe they go that route.
And in the books, he's essentially incapacitated. So she's like, I know I said that very strangely. He's I did it again. I'm gonna just skip the word. So we're very tired. And so she takes the mantle and she becomes the Black Panther. So I would love to see Shuri. And then from there, like I said, the technology of Wakanda in general is phenomenally advanced. Like you see this immediately when they introduce you to the land and its people and the buildings and how everything shimmers in a weird way.
Immediately,
and
it's crazy.
And it's funny because you're so impressed by Tony Stark for all these years, and then here comes Shuri. She's like,
and then you're like, wow,
this.
that's nothing.
It's nuts. And so and of course, we mentioned the vibranium earlier, but it's once again, it's supplemented from a meteor that crashed onto Earth. Versus, so in the MCU, they treat it more as an organic matter. So they never mentioned, I don't believe they meant, well, did they? Maybe they did actually mention it in the beginning. Did they mention the meteor?
Mention vibranium as
a meteorite.
It's the meteor, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, so that, and it's harvested, comparable to adamantium, but tougher. And so I'm going to link this in the show notes as well. So at the museum, one of my colleagues, Dr. Aaron Celestian, he is the geologist of the museum. Ooh. And he also works with NASA JPL. Ooh. And so before I actually started at the museum, they did this incredible video during the release of, I believe, Black Panther. And somebody asked him, is vibranium real? And so there's an awesome 2.5-minute video that I
think you showed this to me.
I showed it to you. And so Dr. Celestian essentially breaks down okay, well, vibranium and adamantium are obviously not real, but the closest metals to those, for the nerds that are out there that are really wondering, tungsten and chromium are the closest associated properties to adamantium and vibranium. Earth's hardest elements that have come from meteorites are both of carbon. So diamond and graphite would be the next runners up. So
oh wow,
yeah. So if you ever wondered what would be the closest thing to make a shield or a suit, it would be tungsten, chromium, diamond, or graphite. And of course, these details bleed over, in the MCU at least, bleed over into the other things we're very familiar with. Bucky's arm, for one. Captain America's shield. And the shield, yeah. And then, like I mentioned in our
Oh, his
Avengers
wings,
Campus.
too. His
And
wings.
the wings, yes. And then I mentioned in the Avengers Campus mini Marvel that we did, the web slingers cages for the Spider-Man ride are quote unquote supposedly made of vibranium metal.
Oof.
And so that's how far it's bleeding out into other parts of the MCU and in Marvel in general. And I wonder how much further it's going to go. You know, now, like you said, now that Wakanda is open.
What if Spidey gets a vibranium suit?
Oh my God, I never even thought of that. That would be dope.
Just get real crazy
Oh my
with
gosh,
it.
can you imagine him with, and this is especially like vibranium web shooters, like they would never break. And that's a huge thing for Spider-Man because he seems to break them every 5
Pretty
minutes.
often.
Yeah. That would be crazy. And then, of course, the Kimoyo beads. The beads
Yes.
are dope.
Yeah.
They're, I don't know, like, can you imagine that kind of technology, nanotechnology all over the place and creating holographic.
I mean, yeah, when you look at
screens
Wakanda and just the different tech they have, and like,
Yeah.
or even like when Everett Ross was healed, he was like, I was shot.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, what do you mean? Like, I'm healed.
Yeah.
He was, and the Shuri's like, well, yeah.
I love that, like when she's looking at his spinal column, for instance, and she finds the swords, she's like, he will live. Like, just so easy. And then
Yeah.
like when he gets up, when he's, post-op, he's just fine.
He's fine.
And
He's
you're
like,
like,
yeah. I'm
oh
like,
my
wow,
gosh.
vibranium's really next level.
Yeah, it's so crazy. And just their technology in general. And so I'd love for them to really get into that more too. Like
Yeah.
we obviously see it in Infinity War, like with Vision and, them trying to extract the
Oh yeah, I
stone
mean,
from
even in the
his
show
head.
too, and you're like, yeah, he's
Yeah.
literally made of vibranium.
He's made of vibranium. Like, what
He's
do you...
like, he's a $2 billion or whatever it was.
Yeah, that's right.
like a freakazoid.
Yeah. And so before we get into the next tier of conversation, we have a question from Patreon patron Ariel, who asks, it's a two-parter, or three-parter actually. Who would you like to see take over as Black Panther, Shuri, Nakia Okoye, or someone new? And how do you think the future films will address Chadwick's passing? I'm a cry.
Yeah.
But for the first part, who would I like to see take over as Black Panther? Like I said, I would like to see Shuri.
Yeah.
It seems the most organic to me.
Yeah, most definitely. And I wonder, no, yeah. I think that would be a very interesting take. Since I mean, and also just logically too, she's the sister. She's
Yeah.
she's technically the next in line.
Yeah.
Right. What's the actor's name again?
For
Shuri?
Letitia Wright.
Letitia Wright.
Or
Yes.
Letitia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's so. I would love to see that. I don't really see anyone else.
Can I what if you real quick?
Sure.
What if Killmonger? What if?
How?
Yeah, that's also true. How? But I mean, like, I don't know. What if with all the branching and
Well, I mean,
another-
that's also literally happening in the What If series.
Yeah,
too, so-
exactly. And it bears different meaning now. Like, what if a different Eric Killmonger comes along and he's like not the same person
Not-
that
okay.
he was before, but
Yeah,
he's still
if I was
Michael
gonna
B.
say
Jordan.
because of
But he comes around and they're like, okay, well,
I guess we have to.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, if it was like a Killmonger that wasn't like obviously raised and grew up the way that Michael B. Jordan's did, then I'd probably be like, okay.
But still Michael B. Jordan.
Oh.
Still portrayed by Michael
Oh,
B.
okay,
Jordan.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just feel like that would be like so. I don't know. It depends. I don't know.
I don't know. What about M'Baku?
But
I mean, he'd be dope.
he would be.
White gorilla. He's a white gorilla. I like
I
him
mean,
as the
yeah. I
gorilla.
mean, he wanted it. He
It's true.
at the beginning
Yeah.
of Black Panther. He
Yeah.
wanted it. Yeah, but
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm gonna stick with Shuri. And then,
yeah,
as for how do we think that the future films will address Chadwick?
I'm very
I
curious.
don't know. I feel
mean,
like they're changing it, or they've
I
changed.
feel like
at least
they're
3
changing
times.
it constantly because they're
Yeah.
like, does this make sense?
Because
Like,
didn't Angela Bassett even say like,
they keep changing things
changing-
because it's like,
yeah,
oh no, and I don't blame them. It's very it's a very fine line to walk.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you can't please everybody.
Because they can't just pull a Carrie Fisher, you know what I mean? Like
I don't think they would want to do that either.
Yeah, and I don't think people were a little divided on that reception too. Like, you know, like it's great that they were able to bring her to life in the last 2 films, but also like I don't know. Like
and then trying to like,
and the general too. I think the general was also.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And then trying to like replace T'Challa with a different actor. It's kind of. I mean, I like that they did. We're not gonna replace T'Challa as like Chadwick as T'Challa, because what he did with the character was very iconic, like very iconic to the point like where you can't imagine anyone else being him. And I also think from an actor standpoint, I don't think anyone would want to.
Yeah, he was like, truly the heart of the film. You know,
I don't think any other actor that would that maybe they considered to play T'Challa. I don't think that actor, no matter how big or who it is, they would want to be like, no, I'm not gonna fill Chadwick's shoes. Like, no, not at all.
That's a toughie.
There's no way. I can't.
That's a toughie.
So I don't know. I don't know how they're gonna address him. Whether he's, I don't know, killed maybe, and then. I don't
know. I don't think they'll do it. I feel like that would be like I feel like that's almost like a double-edged sword. You know, like. Yeah.
You don't think they're gonna address?
I don't think they're gonna kill.
Kill him
off.
Yeah.
No, I think they're gonna. I feel like they'll almost skirt around it, and perhaps like he's there, but just he's never at the forefront anymore.
Yeah.
You know.
I don't know.
I just it's tough.
It is. I'm very interested to see how they tackle it.
Well, here's a question for you. Do you have anybody else in mind that you might?
I was waiting for this section for this part because now I'm like, okay, I'm always looking forward to this part. Mm-hmm. You have a list, right? You have a list?
I have a list of who auditioned.
And everything? Man. Like who?
I have one off the top of my head.
Who's yours?
John David Washington. Denzel's son.
Yeah.
Who is for those who don't know, he's the actor from Tenet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But after seeing like Tenet, he's also in Black Klansman, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know.
Maybe he's.
But then again, we probably could say the same about Chadwick. Like we're like, who's this? But then you're like, you see him play, you're like, oh wow, okay, yeah, he's. Yeah, John David Washington. Yeah. Definitely can see that. Who else? Like when it comes to like black actors at the time too.
Yeah.
I can't even think of.
And I know Chadwick is just so incomparable that it's like.
Yeah.
Where do you even start? Where do you start? You know, like
I can't.
Someone who embodies both a very reserved and composed nature, but is also soft and can also be very intimidating.
Yeah.
You know, and is also, you know, just he's kind of like soft, handsome, where he's like got boyish features, but he's still. Yeah, it's because even with John David, I'm just like he's got the chops for it.
Yeah.
I don't. With the look, not so much, I feel.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Chadwick is, again, he's just, there's something about his face and his eyes that was it spoke to me as T'Challa.
Yeah. All right. Who auditioned? I'm curious now. Because I'm pretty sure they went through a pretty long, painstaking process for this.
I have 3. Let's see. And so 3 actors actually auditioned. And did you read anything at all? Did you hear or remember anything at all about the actors that actually?
No, I don't know.
And so the first one is Adewale Akinwumi Agbaje. Do you know him?
I'm gonna have to put some faces to names for this one.
He actually played Algrim, or known as Curse, in Thor: Dark World, and he was Killer Croc in Suicide Squad, the first one.
Oh,
the
okay.
David Ayer Suicide Squad.
Oh, okay.
Not that he was a face character, but
okay, yeah.
That
oh,
guy.
Okay.
Do you remember now?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So he actually auditioned for T'Challa, and then of course, Jaemin Hansu.
Who?
I was gonna say something else. He literally says who.
Oh. Wow.
The guy from Guardians of the Galaxy. And
oh.
oh my god.
Come on, man.
Yes, and he was in Tomb Raider.
Yes.
And,
Yes,
you
okay.
know this
Yeah, the
actor.
face, yeah.
Yeah. Ji-won Hansu, yeah, and so he was Korath in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes.
And
That's funny.
he,
So good.
that's pretty hilarious. And then all of these actors, like Black Widow,
Mm-hmm.
all of the people that auditioned ended up in the MCU anyway.
Yes.
And so these two were both in Thor: Dark World and then Guardians of the Galaxy, and then the third person who auditioned, our friend Anthony Mackie.
Oh wow.
So
oh
imagine
yeah.
that! Like,
Yeah.
Captain America Falcon as T'Challa.
Yeah. Damn.
That would have been wild too.
That's crazy.
yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I think Chadwick blows him
Chadwick.
out the water.
Dude, legit, right? No, he really does. I'm just like, I love all these actors. I think they're all fantastic. Not Chadwick Boseman.
He was born to do
He was
that.
born to play the king.
I know.
And then of course, not to shy away from the OG, Wesley Snipes was also, like, I mentioned earlier, he was in consideration for it, really wanted to do it, and unfortunately he didn't make the cut. So, and it wasn't time.
Yeah,
it was truly made for Chadwick. And so I had noted some suggested reading here, and so I haven't nearly read nearly as much as I wanted to of this character, but there are two particular writers that I highly recommend if anybody is the least bit interested in Black Panther, and that would be Christopher Priest. He actually just goes by Priest. His run in 1998 is pretty fantastic. And then, of course, Ta-Nehisi Coates, who I'm very familiar with, his line came in 2016. It's the very modern Black Panther book. The cover is very prominent. Everyone's kind of seen it. And he's written the more modern T'Challa that kind of went parallel with the films. But yeah, if you're interested, please check out their work. And with that, that's the end of the show.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So is there anything else you wanted to mention?
I
or
just
comment on?
I mean, I think back to I remember where I was and what I was doing when I found out about the Chadwick news.
That's what I was going to ask you, but then I got too emotional, so I didn't write it down. I was like, should I ask him?
I remember where
where were you when you
I was
found
getting
out?
Korean barbecue with some of my friends. We were just waiting for a table, and I was just on Instagram, and then I was on Twitter, and I just saw, I think Chadwick was trending, and I was like, what? And then a post on Instagram too, and like him posted like that picture that he has, and then I was just like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, well, first of all, wow, like props to like his team and his family and friends for keeping this on the down low for, they said
3 years? 4, 5?
4 years, because
4
they
years,
said
yeah.
2016 or right
Yeah.
before 2016, I think, that when he was diagnosed. And so just so many questions came to mind. You're like, what? I think that was like one of the I think that was like probably like a celebrity death that affected me like secondly, because Kobe's death affected me the most. But then when I saw Chadwick's, I was like, whoa, like this is like heavy, like this is huge, because he's like loved all around the world.
Beloved,
So
yeah.
you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I was just like, wow, this is pretty, but like in the fact that no one knew, none of his friends.
Yeah,
that's
the
crazy.
craziest part to me.
Like makes me really think like, did Marvel know? Did
Yeah.
Feige really know?
I
Like
feel
did
like-
his actor?
So they never clarified, right?
I mean, from the way that it made it seem that like he hit it pretty well. But maybe there was probably a handful of professional colleagues that probably knew.
That
So
knew, yeah.
I would say Feige knew. I want to assume Feige knew because
same. Yeah.
and that's why like they got Black Panther
Yeah.
within those couple of years that we did.
Yeah.
So but to hide it from the public
That's so tremendous. That's a feat.
freaking amazing.
Yeah.
I'm like just props to them because
Yeah, because-
that stuff can be very very tough to hide and deal with like
Yeah.
on a public level.
Yeah.
So I was just like, that was like one of the biggest shocks to me. I was
sure.
like, oh my God, like how do you carry on this character?
I know. And I in particular was actually at the drive-in, at my first drive-in movie that I had ever seen, because it was obviously the pandemic.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I was there to see New Mutants, actually.
I remember it. Yeah, I think you were telling me about this.
And
yeah.
I remembered also, I was scrolling and I saw pictures and I was just like, what's going on?
Crazy.
Because I do this thing on Instagram where I often I don't read the captions. I don't. And so I just kept seeing a picture and I was like, cool, what? And then I started to realize, and then I think someone had actually captioned the first words that they said were so sad, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute, what did I just miss? And then I went back to, because then the algorithm, once I went back to the app, it snapped up and it landed on Chadwick's post in particular.
Yeah.
And then I read it and I was like, what?
It's crazy.
And I started crying.
It's crazy.
I started bawling. I was like, my God.
I was just in genuine, just like,
yeah.
What the hell? Like,
and did I text you or no?
No, I don't think.
I texted somebody,
yeah.
And I was like, dude, Chadwick Boseman just died. Like,
yeah.
What? And yeah, I didn't know what.
And the fact that like well, first of all, he filmed back to back. He filmed that because like so that crazy. Infinity War Endgame back to back. He did Black Panther in 2017, basically. Yeah. He stayed in shape for it.
And then he did his other films too on
he did
like in
Jackie
the
Robinson.
Yeah, Jackie Robinson.
The other one, he played the musical artist.
Yeah. That was his last one, wasn't it?
That was and so he did all those films pretty much back to back in like the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, like, and the fact that he hid it, kept it a secret.
It's a Black Bottom.
But
yeah.
But still was able to just keep working.
Yeah, Black Bottom.
Yeah.
Crazy. I mean, that's nuts too, because like, not to get too deep into like celebrities and all that, but like he's not one of those actors I was like standing, if you will. Like I wasn't following his every move and I wasn't like keeping tabs on him, but I would have those moments where I was like, oh, he's looking a little tired. I didn't even realize that until like someone pointed out that, like, I remember, I think someone said he went on IG Live in the middle of the pandemic, I think, just himself, and people were saying like, oh, he got skinny and everything, and then people were making fun of him for it. I know.
And
it's
then
so cool.
and then like what is it, 6 months later he passes away and you're like, crap, he had cancer.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, okay, you guys are pretty much assholes. I agree. Because he was so, his team was so good at keeping it a secret.
I can't even fathom having like imagine like I don't even think you need an NDA for that. Like I feel like they were just like, no, we're gonna respect that, and so I mean, thankfully he obviously like lives on, and we haven't seen his final thing yet, which will be in What If
his final performance as Black Panther.
4 episodes. So he's actually going to be in like half of the series.
That's crazy.
If not more than
Michael
half.
B. Jordan too is in it too.
Yeah, and so that's fantastic, and it brings me great joy to see like his listing for credits is T'Challa / Star-Lord.
It's great. So Killmonger, Michael B. Jordan is Black Panther, right?
Oh, I don't know if I haven't looked at anything.
No.
Spoiler free for me.
I don't even know, because I just saw that. I just saw the trailer. Did you see the trailers at all or no?
I haven't seen the last 2.
Oh, okay. Never mind. But yeah, but then he's and then T'Challa is Star-Lord.
It's nice to know that he's still there.
Yeah, so that's cool. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah,
which is a nice segue, because that'll be
the next episode.
So
and so for the next episode, we're gonna. I mean, to those who don't know, the What If series is coming out on Disney Plus. It'll be out. The
August
first episode
11th.
will be out by the time that this episode drops.
Yes.
And so it's actually debuting next Wednesday for us, or last Wednesday for you, depending on when you're listening to it. And so, very quickly, the What If series does not correlate with the comic books at all. And so in the comic books, they're from way back. I want
But
to say
there are
70s,
what if
80s.
comics.
There are what if
Yeah.
comics. What if comics was a thing up until maybe, I don't know what the most recent was, but maybe 2010s. And it came from way back in the day. I want to say 70s, maybe 80s.
Okay.
And so I've collected them throughout my entire comic book life since I was a wee little child. And so I have some, I'm going to pull them out of the boxes just so
Sick.
you can see. And so the difference, the main difference between those before, not to stray too far into the next episode, but is that the What If series is very much a byproduct of the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
So they're staying within the line of MCU stories and so MCU characters, which is why we see, in the trailer, Peggy Carter and Killmonger and the Guardians, for instance. And so that is very MCU focused, whereas in the books, it's an anthology series. None of them are connected. They're just connected by the fact that they're characters that are experiencing events that are essentially the opposite of what actually happened. And so there are issues like, what if Gwen Stacy had not died?
Yeah.
What if Elektra hadn't died? What if Spider-Man married Black Cat?
Okay.
And so we're seeing a lot of that. And of course, like, what if Rocket Raccoon got the Infinity Gauntlet? Like, stuff like that, you know what I mean? And so that's not an actual one, but it is very similar to something that happens. So we're going to go through just a few of the ones that I have, for instance, and then a little recap on the first episode.
See what they did.
Yeah, and so that'll be fun.
And then possibly talk about like situations or scenarios
Yeah.
we would like to see.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
if you have a what if scenario that you would like to see or would like us to discuss, please hit us up on social.
Let us know. We'll find them out, and then
be
we'll
awesome.
discuss it and see like what possibly could happen if
Yeah.
that scenario happened in the MCU.
Exactly, because like what if indeed.
Yeah.
So of course, thanks for listening. And we are salute to our patron limited edition group. This week's sequence of names: Ed, Jenny, Andrew, Joliz, Claire, Robin, and Melanie.
Oh yeah.
Follow us on social at STRKCNTRST. If you like what you hear, we have Patreon. You can come support it for as little as a wee buck a day. Oh, not a day. What am I saying? A month.
Wow, imagine. We're just robbing people.
So yeah.
Thank you so much, guys, again for listening, and we will see you in the next one.
For King Chad!
Oh yeah.
Booyah.
Bye.
Bye!
We all know the truth. More connects us than separates us. But in times of crisis, the wise build bridges, while the foolish build barriers. We must